All right, guys, we're gonna start with a caddis larva pattern. This is a pattern that's kind of a mishmash of a few others, namely Oliver Edwards. He's got a really incredibly detailed hydropsyche caddis larva that's got individual legs and gills, and boy, I wanted something like that wasn't, it didn't take me hours and hours to tie. So I kind of have this pattern put together, and it fishes really well, especially when these fish are keyed into these caddis larvae. I've got in the vise, this is a TMCO 2488H. It is a heavy wire hook. I'm tying these in 12s today just so that the camera picks these up. Typically would tie this in like a 14 or a 16 for the naturals, but this hook is, I really like this for this pattern. It's got this curved shank, it's got this straight eye rather than the down eye, which I think does open that gape up just a little bit better hooking capacity on that. But this heavy wire hook is real tough. Fish eat this fly with some gusto and aggression, and so I like to have that heavy wire hook on there. When they're into this larva, they want it. For thread, I'm using a Semperfli. This is just a 30 denier in brown or copper. This is the nano silk. Basically a gel spun poly thread that's tough and durable but doesn't put a lot of bulk on the fly. So we're going to start up here at the eye and just make a thread base down the hook shank. You want to take this down through the bend of that hook. I want to just kind of give the impression on this this fly that we've got some bend to it. When you're cutting this GSP, a little tip with your scissor, this is a razor scissor from Dr. Slick. You just open that scissor up and just slide it through the thread. Don't try and snip it like that. It won't cut it. You just gotta pop it through and it will take care of it. It's really tough thread. It doesn't slice very well with the cutting. We're gonna do a little tail on this. These larvae have this little gilly looking tail on them, and so you can use anything. I've just got a little Arizona synthetic dub, little diamond dub here. This is in a color called Callibaetis, and it's just kind of a grayish, tannish, sparkly looking color. I don't know that the color matters too much because you're getting only a few millimeters of tail on this, but just keeping it kind of sparse. I take a chunk out about like that, and I just kind of card it and roll it together. So I just get fibers kind of, the dubbing just kind of twisted around itself. And I'm just gonna put it on the back here, and we're gonna just set that in place. And that's about it. I'll take about 4 or 5 turns up, and then sometimes I do like to double this. I'll just double this back down. It makes a little thicker tail, and then that body, or that tail material doesn't pull out quite so easily. We're just gonna snip this off really close, like that. A little tail. I'm gonna put in a little ribbing here for durability. This is just an old spool of like 7X mono Tippet. 7X, 6X, 5X, doesn't really matter. This is what I had. I'm just gonna cut a length off here that's a good working length. I don't know, 6 or 7 inches of this stuff. And I'm gonna tie this in, heading back down towards the tail that we just put in there. And then I'm also going to put in a shellback right now. This material that I'm using for shellback, you can use a lot of things. I've done like clear, gosh, you can use just like Ziploc bag or Scud back. I've been doing this recently. This is a product that's kind of designed for check nymphing. It's this, I think you pronounce it Sybai or Sybai, I don't know how to say that word, but it's this UV flashback, and it comes in lots of colors. I brought a few out here. I do them in brown, I do them in olive. Today I'm gonna do this kind of yellowish olive color because I think it adds a little bit of just kind of a contrast to the body. I like that one a lot. And I've just got a little strip of this pre-cut. It comes in sheets, and you just cut it. I don't know if the camera picks that up, but just little, you know, 2 to 3 millimeter thick strip off of that. That's gonna be my shell back over the top of this thing. So think of this pattern as if you're familiar with check nymphs or some of these Euro style nymphs, think of it as a check nymph without all the weight. I tie this thing light on purpose because I like it to be higher in the water column. You know, I'll add a little split shot or something to my tippet to get it down, but it's really designed to fish light. When these fish are on these Hydropsyche caddis, they're just surfing and cruising, and they're picking these things off up in the column, not down real deep. So, but you could add weight to this. You could add a bead to it as well if you wanted to. I'm doing this without weight or without bead. Okay, for the gills through this body, we're gonna use a little tan. This is just a ostrich feather that we're gonna do. I'm gonna take one of these off, and what I'm looking for is just a real fine, short feather on the fiber. So down here, I just clipped one of these off here. Down here towards where it grows off the stem, these are real short. I wanna utilize these shorter pieces down through on this body. I want these gills to be just kind of short and stubby, rather than something up in here that's more broad, wide, and long. I don't want all that necessarily in this. I want these to be short, so I'm just gonna tie that in at the back end here as well. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is we're gonna dub a body now, and for dubbing, I'm just using, this is Nature's Spirit, their Caddis Emerger Nymph dubbing. I've just got a bunch of colors in a box here. I'm using a color that I kind of mixed together. This is just a caddis green and an olive green color, probably about a 50-50 mix on these two colors, caddis green and olive green right through here. So I'm just gonna take about a 50-50 mix of that, and I'm gonna just kind of hand blend here and come up. You can do these any color, you know, search your waters, whatever you find in the river system or the waterway you're fishing, try and match that. I'm gonna put a little more caddis into that so that you're coming up with a color that looks like the naturals. That's part of the fun with this, is you can kind of customize. So I've got a kind of a 50-50 mix there, and I'm just gonna kind of sparsely dub. I keep this body a little bit on the sparser side, a little bit on the thinner side, because those gills will come through it and kind of add bulk to it as well. So we'll see how that gets us. I've got maybe four inches of dubbing on that, and I'm just gonna start dubbing. I'm gonna start from kind of about 2/3 point up the hook shank and move back towards the tail. And then I'm gonna start dubbing back forward just to kind of bulk that up a little bit. I want a little bit of a thicker midsection on that, so I'm gonna add just a little touch more. I want that to be just a little thicker towards the midsection. My hook point. That'll do. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap these gills through. These gills, I'm just gonna open palmer wrap through that body. So I'm just kind of spacing these out evenly. This adds some segmentation, and also these gills that are pretty prominent when you see these guys in real life. They have these gills that run kind of laterally down the length of the body. I don't want to take the time to wrap those laterally though, so I'm just going to spiral wrap those. I double over, just tip that off there. And then next we're going to tie kind of this head portion of the fly. And so for this, I'm doing two materials. Another ostrich, this is in like a dark gray or a gray dun type color. And that's gonna imitate like our legs. And for the legs, I want the legs to be longer than what these gills were. So I'm selecting a little fiber or flume off this that's got a good length to it. So you can see those are quite a bit longer than what those gills were. I'll trim off this shorter section so that we get into those legs. I want those legs to be longer. So I'm just gonna tie that in, offer that in here on my side. And again, I'm at about the 1/3, 2/3 point on that hook. Going back to this box of dubbing, I've just got, like I said, a bunch of colors in here. I'm gonna use this color called Blackish Brown. This is that Nature's Spirit Caddis emerger nymph dubbing, and I'm gonna do that with a mix of this color they call hare's ear, and then one called brown. So it's like a triple color here. But I've got those three, kind of a muted, darker color, and I'm just finger mixing on those just to get kind of an even mix. And again, just play with colors. You can come up with other dubbings and other colors that you like better. But that's kind of the finished product, kind of a muted, darker, brownish, grayish color. And I'm just gonna dub this on just like we did with the remainder, or the body previously. So just keeping it kind of sparse. You can add more if you need to, but that's gonna be pretty solid right there. So we're gonna start just dubbing this, and we're gonna do the same way. We're gonna kind of dub forward, and then we're gonna bring it back, just so I build a little bulk into that head, that darker head. They have kind of this prominent, darker forward section. And then just bring my thread forward to the eye. So now I'm just gonna wrap this ostrich through the darker section. So darker ostrich goes through the darker section. You can see already that those are longer fibers, and they extend out longer than did the gill section. That's what we want. We want those legs to be a little bit longer. And then so I get about 4-ish turns through there, and I'm just gonna tie off. And I always double over on these because these are pretty fragile little fibers. They just tear off pretty easy. All right. So this is where I just kind of will lick my thumb and finger. I'll just kind of part this dude's hairdo down the top and just kind of get those fibers to lay down on the sides. I'll bring this shellback over, and this shellback just kind of lays over the top of all this. And tie this off at the eye. You can kind of see how that lays. And the idea is that shellback provides a little bit of flash, a little bit of attractive value with the UV of that shellback material. And also make sure that all the gills and the legs and things hang off to the side and off the bottom too. So I double that back and I tie it off, and then we cut it. And then lastly, for durability, since we've got all this really kind of fragile ostrich hurl through this, is we're gonna rib it with the mono. And I counter rib this, so I did all of my wraps for my hurl going over the top away from me. So I'm gonna bring this under the bottom towards me. And counter wrapping this hopefully will put durability into this. This is gonna put segmentation into that shellback as well, which you'll see. But it really is kind of binding down. You're cross wrapping all of those ostrich hurl wraps and dubbing wraps with this. And this, you know, it's not bulletproof, but it does make it really strong, and I get a lot more durability out of these things this way. So when I get to this point, little trick that I like to impart here is I actually will whip finish this, and I seek to whip finish it. Let me just do this. Tie it off first. There we go. Get ahead of myself there, and then I will whip finish this mono. So I tied it off with my thread, but then as I whip finish this adds just a little extra layer of security for that mono rib. So I whip finish that on, and then pull tightly. And then I'm gonna take my nano silk thread, and I'm gonna whip over that. Okay. So again, to cut this nano silk, just open your scissor and just slide right in between the two blades and just pop it through. And then you can do the same with that 7X. And then last little step here is right along the top, right up at this head. because they do have this darker head. I'll take a little black Sharpie, or sometimes I'll use brown. Sometimes I'll do orange, like I want a little hot spot on it, but I'll take a little black Sharpie and I'll just work back through that section just to kind of emphasize and darken up that spot right there. And then what we'll do is we'll take this little water-based head cement, and I'll put a little head cement on that knot. And I'll run it back onto that black section too. And then make sure we clear that eye. And that's it. That is that Hydropsyche caddis larva. This thing, like I say, really does fish well. Kind of suspended in the water column when those fish are really zooming those caddis larvae. They're looking for this thing, and when you get this thing wet and it's underwater, it really does look like what those naturals they're eating look like. It's pretty tough to beat. It's got that little bit of sparkle coming off of that UV back, and you know, size and shape, profile, color, everything matches real well. This is a good one. Put in your box.